Today on CityCast Las Vegas, F1 is back in the news, and it's looking like the Las Vegas Grand Prix could be sticking around for at least another 10 years. But is that actually a good thing for all of us here in Las Vegas? Plus, 69-mile-an-hour winds ripped through the valley, leaving plenty, including myself, without power for quite a while. We know Vegas is a windy place, but this was next level. Are these kind of windstorms the new norm for us? And the Plaza Hotel is finding success with all-inclusive packages. Are they onto something? And is that a sustainable model for Vegas going forward? Our creative producer, Jacob Solis, is going to help me find out. It's Tuesday, May 19th. I'm Jesse Merrick, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Hey, Jacob. Yeah, it was a crazy weekend, man. A lot going on. I even saw that Colby Raha jumped over the fountains at Caesar's Palace, or at least kind of. Did you see that?
Yeah, over the fountains. The listeners at home can't see my air quotes, but it was near the fountain, so I guess it counts.
Yeah, it was a big motocross weekend, I guess, in Vegas, too, because Travis Pastrana was wheeling through Boulder Station. What's going on? Were they all just like, hey, let's descend upon Vegas for this?
That one really caught me by surprise, and it just looked like it also caught people in the casino by surprise. There were people just sitting at the slot machines when he was doing it, so sure, why not?
Yeah, and if it did, I'm like, geez, that's dangerous as hell. Imagine you're playing slots, all of a sudden get smoked by Travis Pastrana doing a wheelie by you. That would not be a fun one to have to fight.
I'm sure the sound of the bike probably clued them into what was going on.
Also true, too. Yeah. Well, I mean, you never know what's going to happen in Vegas, that's for sure, but just two odd ones, yeah. I will say this, if they do the jump again, actually put it over the fountains. If you're going to try and honor, Evel Knievel, don't get me wrong. Impressive. I could not do that. Neither one of us could. But let's really do it. If you're going to say over the fountains, go over the fountains.
Let's have some fireworks. Let's really, Vegas it up here.
Yeah, Pastrana did it in 2018 and jumped over a bunch of cars, but it's okay, let's see the actual jump again. But we'll see what happens with that. But speaking of motorsports and all of that, we know F1's back in the news. What's going on with them, Jacob?
That's right. So Tuesday, probably by the time you're listening to this, the Clark County Commission is going to vote to make F1 an annual event through 2037. Now, some quick context on this. The County Commission has voted multiple times to extend F1 to this point. Right now, they've already voted to extend it, I believe, through 2032. So for the next 5 years, this would be the next 10 years. Not a done deal yet, but obviously if they put it on the agenda, probably pretty close to a done deal.
It will surprise no one when it has gone through and extended, right?
Exactly. And so, look, I guess really the takeaway here is that Vegas F1 is probably here to stay, I think is the takeaway that I have. You
go and make a paddock and build one like that. I forget the cost of it, but you do that and you're like, okay, you guys are going to plant your flag here. And that makes me wonder, though, too, because, again, all the money that was invested in that, and we hear all the numbers thrown around. Do you think that it's something that's worth it for us here in Vegas?
Well, to steelman it, here's what the money people say, is that it's $1 billion in economic impact for Vegas every single year, guaranteed. And the big thing is that essentially you're getting a lot of international tourism on a weekend that would be dead otherwise. It's always the week before Thanksgiving. That's the whole point of having it in November. Frankly, if you ask me, it's a little too cold to have a night race in November in Vegas. But that's the whole idea, is that we take this weekend that no one comes to Vegas on, and suddenly we make it a weekend that you have to come to Vegas on. Obviously, there's some flip sides to that, but that's the reason for it. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, look, I love the idea that it brings a lot of money in, like you noted, nearly $1 billion in terms of economic impact. I will say, in terms of money spent, when I was doing my research, they say visitors, not including ticket price, are spending $2,400, around town when they come in. So, that's a big win. I know it's such a headache for all the people down on the Strip and all that stuff. I personally, this isn't just sports guy Jesse talking. I personally love it being here because it's a bit of another tentpole event that we can attach ourselves to, like you said, in an otherwise slow time that we know is going to inject people into our city and a lot of money into our city as well.
Yeah, I think the thing with F1 that really annoys people here, well, there's a lot of things that annoy people here, but one of the big ones for people who have businesses near the Strip is that there are clear winners and clear losers. I know we've talked a lot on the podcast about the K-shaped economy and how much Vegas caters towards people with $1 bajillion. And F1 is not just like one of those things. It is the thing that caters to the ultra wealthy. And so if you just have, a small business or a restaurant that's not quite on the strip, that is near the strip.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Right. You don't just lose out, I think, on the mega wealthy who are not going to come to your restaurant anyways, but the regular tourists who might have come on that weekend, who might not physically be able to get there because of the sort of physical implications of a Formula One race on the strip. So I think that's what really gets a lot of people going. Also, the fact that, like, if you're off strip, what do you care that F1 is happening? Like, no one out at the Red Rock is like, ooh, F1.
Yeah. And that's kind of my approach. Like, I mean, obviously, I've been in the industry and I've covered the event a handful of times when it's been here. I know you have too. And so my thing is, like, if I'm not covering it, there's no way in hell I'm going down there.
Yeah, it sucks. I'll say this. I covered one race as a reporter. I went to another race as a fan, and I've had sort of both experiences. And going as a fan, parking always drives you up a wall on the strip. There is truly nothing like trying to park on the strip during F1 to go there to try and get to the part of the circuit that you're trying to get to. The actual logistics of F1 continue to confound me. I don't get it. It's just a consequence of the fact that if you're going to have a race in Vegas, you got to have it on the strip. And look, I guess if I were going to, again, steelman the pro position here, that's the thing about Vegas. Other F1 races across the world don't have this. Even other street races. Miami is a street race, but technically it takes place, I believe, in Sunrise, Florida. It's like not even a suburb of Miami because it's at Hard Rock Stadium, and they just race around the stadium. Like, it's not, you don't see Miami. There's nothing to that race. And so Vegas is one of a kind in that way. But is it worth it?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like we could debate this all day, but from a dollars and cents standpoint, in terms of something that comes here consistently and injects that kind of money into us, we're not going to see that. The Super Bowl came in and generated an estimated $1 billion in terms of money being injected into our economy, which is awesome, but that's like a one-off thing. And yes, we're going to be thrown into the rotation for that. Like, that's a foregone conclusion at this point, at least to me. So I think we need it, but it sucks because you hate seeing the impact to everybody else down there. You've been as a fan too, you said, and to me, like, I know you're a fan of the sport as a whole, so I'd love your way of wrapping your head around it. But for me, I'm like, I walked it, when I was working the event and stuff and looking around, and I'm like, unless you got like millions of dollars, I don't think it's worth it to go to this thing as a fan.
Yeah, I'll say this. The Vegas race, the way it's set up, it is really hindered by the fact, if you're a normal fan, that it's November and the race is happening at 10 p.m. or like practice is happening at 8 p.m. It's cold. It can be windy. When I went one year, it was so windy that they couldn't actually raise the TV screens that let you watch the race from wherever you're sitting. And so me and my buddy, huge into F1, we're both like on our phones. They give you these little radios that you can listen to the sort of play-by-play, for lack of a better word.
It's a little NASCAR-esque, like,
Yeah. And so, we were really into it. And so when we saw the cars coming around, we were keeping track of the order and keeping track of the action on our phones. So that was like a really cool experience for me. If you are casually into F1 or casually into motorsport, no, that's not fun. So you need the money to have a box where you can get hors d'oeuvres to have any amount of fun. So I think that's really working against Vegas here.
Yeah, it's May. Start saving your money to be able to really enjoy it, right?
Exactly.
And so, like we said, though, this is a foregone conclusion in a sense. At least we do believe that it's going to be here long term. And so they're pushing it through. The commission's happy. But, like, has there been any pushback about extending it? Do you know of any of that? Or have they just been like plowing through every red light?
I think the biggest obstacle when you look at the political levers that are being pulled here is whether or not the county is on the hook for any money being invested into it. Like you mentioned earlier, there's a paddock. The sport, which is owned by an American company, Liberty Media, spent about $500 million on that paddock. But they also came to the commission later when they were repaving the strip. I'm sure everyone remembers this.
Oh, man, that was
and asked for $40 million. And so I think the question is, that repaving only lasts X amount of years. I think between 5 and 10 years, depending on, how abrasive, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
They are going to have to repave it again before this 2037 deadline. And so I think you're going to see another discussion about cost sharing because obviously the sport wants public money to defray as much of this as possible.
Yeah.
And certainly they'll make the argument that, hey, we just brought in $1 billion of economic activity every year for the last 5 years or 10 years. $30 million, $40 million, however much it costs to repave the next time is a small price to pay, right? If that's the argument
quote
they're
unquote,
making.
yeah.
I don't know how a commissioner is going to look like that. And frankly, who knows what the commission looks like in 10 years. it's an open question.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's one of the things that, like, as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay to repave the roads for you guys to drive your fancy fast cars down on the strip. I'll say
Exactly.
that, I don't want to use our room tax rates and things like that on that. But I guess too, like, is this, I guess, indicative of Las Vegas going all in on sports and using this almost in a sense as another one of our teams, kind of, because it's a reoccurring yearly event. Yes, you're not going to games consistently through a quote unquote season, but like, does it just seem like they're attaching themselves to it and just, another added layer of their wanting to be the sports and entertainment capital of the world?
I think it's an interesting question because we look at other sports that are coming to Vegas. I mean, the NHL is expanding. Obviously, Vegas was an expansion team, but they've added more teams since in Seattle, and there was the team moved to Utah. The NBA is obviously going to expand and get bigger. F1 is a kind of an inflection point this year, both because there's a new regulation set that's been really highly controversial. I won't get into it so I don't bore people, but what a disaster these engines have been. So much so that top drivers like Max Verstappen are threatening to leave because they're having so little fun driving these new cars. Exactly. And when the drivers are having such a bad time, that seeps into the fan base, who are also having a bad time. I can't remember, having followed this sport for over a decade at this point, being this disinterested in a season of Formula One. Part of that is the engines and the fact that the drivers, it's honestly not that fun to watch. But part of it is also the fact that F1 has spent a lot of money, time, and effort investing in the Middle East as a base for races. And because of the war in Iran, there were multiple races very early on in the season that just got canceled. And so we went over a month without a race between China and Miami. And it just totally killed whatever momentum the sport had. And so I think about, okay, where's the Vegas race going to be at the end of this year? Like, how many fans are going to be excited to come to Vegas after we've had an entire year of drivers moaning about how much the new rules suck and a multi-interruption spate of these Middle Eastern races that aren't happening because the state of the world is the state of the world? What is the future of F1 in that environment? Does F1 make sense in 10 years in that environment? And I don't know. I think there's so many things that are going to change between now and then that it's so difficult to say where F1's place is going to be in this pantheon when NBA's coming, the NFL is heating up, we're getting more Super Bowls, college sports is heating up. Where does it fit in that puzzle? I'm not sure what the answer to that question is.
Yeah, I wonder when it reaches a breaking point of, okay, there's football going on, there's basketball going on, there's, playoff baseball that is going on, so does it reach a point where it's oversaturated and you're like, yeah, no, this doesn't make sense anymore. You don't want to be left with a bad deal with that.
I almost forgot about the A's. Thank you for reminding me about baseball.
Yeah. We say playoff baseball with the A's. We'll see if that actually transpires for them.
Yeah, we shall see.
They don't like to spend money. All right, Jacob, let's move along. Again, lots of stuff happened in this past weekend. There were some crazy winds that ripped through the valley. Gusts reached 69 miles an hour over Allegiant Stadium. They're strong enough to temporarily shut down departures over at Harry Reid Airport. That's just crazy. Knocked out power for nearly 1,000 people on the west side of the valley, including downtown, too. I was without power for a couple hours, and I honestly was looking at hotels because I'm like, I got to work in the morning and we got to be able to shoot these shows, So I'm trying to scramble and figure out what's going on. Luckily, it came back on, but it was insane. And, the impacts even hit EDC going on as well up at the Speedway.
Right.
It forced a bunch of the stages to shut down on the final night, that is, of EDC, kind of mid-set for them. Is this something, I know Vegas is windy. That's a thing. That was something I learned when I moved here. But is this just like the new norm for us, these insane windstorms?
Yeah, so this is one of those things. I know everyone loves to talk about climate change. This is one of those things about climate change that it's very difficult to draw a direct link to a single storm or a single event and say this thing was worse or was bigger or was XYZ because of climate change. What is true, though, is that as the Earth warms up, as water temperatures warm especially, that messes with air temperatures too. And those air temperatures will make severe storms more likely as a general rule. And the thing with Vegas is that wind piece can get crazy. So there's this thing called a microburst. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
No. What is that?
Okay. So it's essentially like, think of it like a huge updraft, but like massive and super strong.
Okay.
What essentially happens is the warm air rises so quickly and the air around it falls as it cools up in the upper atmosphere that it creates this like mini funnel thing that's super powerful. It can create winds up to 100 miles an hour inside of it. It can knock planes out of the sky because you don't realize you're flying through it until suddenly you just completely lose lift and you just plummet to the ground.
That's terrifying.
Oh, yeah, it's awful. And I think we've had them in Vegas before. I just remember once, like, I looked outside my window and I'm like, I don't think the tree is supposed to bend that way. Luckily, the tree snapped back, but it was like among the crazier things to see a gust north of 70 miles an hour just happen right in front of you and be like, well, I guess I'll just hunker down.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I mean, we're supposed to not have to deal with tornadoes, hurricanes, all that. Like, we don't have cellars to go down into or storm shelters to be able to hide away from this stuff. And as a guy who lives downtown where there's palm trees everywhere, which I know are built to withstand strong winds and all, but that just like screams like horror movie waiting to happen.
No, and that's the other thing is it goes to, you look in other parts of the country and I think you see like in the East Coast, for instance, there's been more and more tornado warnings happening, like over in like DC, you know, who wants a tornado rampaging through downtown DC? But it's a thing that's happening now. And I think in Vegas, especially as it gets drier too, the implication of not just windstorms, but dust storms.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone saw the air quality yesterday was premium. Great.
No bueno.
Love to breathe in.
Yeah, no, when you mentioned the windstorms, I remember when I first moved here in Vegas, I used to live down in Henderson and my apartment looked out towards kind of like Lake Las Vegas and the wash and all that stuff. And my first experience with high winds and windstorms and all that, I'm sitting there watching the news, ironically, and they're talking about, you know, oh, there's a windstorm coming in, sandstorm, like, be careful. And I'm thinking, like, okay, like, are these things real? This seems like something just from a movie. And I look out on the patio, and I see this wall of sand coming from Lake Las Vegas. It looked like something out of, like, The Mummy or whatever, you know, or like the locust storm coming for you. And
yeah,
everything's
Mad Max,
getting, it's crazy. Everything's getting dark. I'm on the third floor of this apartment complex, and everything's shaking like crazy. And I was like, I thought I lived on the West Coast. What are we dealing with here? So those things are just crazy to me. I hadn't seen one like that since then. I'd imagine you've had your fair share of them too over the years, huh?
Yeah, and I think that's that's the thing. They all blend together because I have seen
You're
many
just so
storms.
used to them.
Yeah, like, you know, every now and again, it's like my parents have this like fold up gazebo thing in their backyard. And every time there's a windstorm, it's like break out the sandbags to weigh that puppy down because otherwise it is gone. And it's just like you live with it. I think my concern, though, is that wind just like amplifies things that are already bad. So yeah, if it's dry and dusty, you can create a dust storm. That's bad. The other thing is if there's a fire, it can make it 10 times worse if it's super duper windy, right? Not only does that fire spread faster, it spreads farther. Even if there's a fire, you know, 100 miles away or 500 miles away, that smoke suddenly blows straight into town. And in a town like Vegas, you don't want to be smoked out for weeks at a time. I know I lived in Reno during a really bad fire season when I was in college in the mid 2010s. Oh my God, we would go weeks at a time where they were like, you know, wet a towel and roll it up and put it at the bottom of your door to try and keep the smoke from coming in. Just run air purifiers. And it's like, if we're realistic, that's just something that's on the table now. That could absolutely happen here, you know, to say nothing of a fire actually being close to Vegas.
No, you don't want those winds to hit a fire around here or anything because, again, like you said, they'll jump and stuff like that. It's scary stuff. As a Californian that's dealt with their fair share of fires and had a home burned down in a fire in California, like not a fun experience. And so that stuff is scary. And as it was all going down over the weekend too, you know, my girlfriend and I are sitting there thinking like, okay, how long is the power going to be out? It happened in the evening. Luckily, it's not too hot yet. But the first thing that popped in my head was, okay, and I've been lucky enough it hasn't happened where power's gotten knocked out in July, but say it is July, the dead of summer, it's 100 plus degrees at night and you don't have your AC, bro. Like, you know, like how have you survived in those situations like that where all of a sudden it's like, okay, mercury's rising inside. What is it going to reach the 90s inside my house? Like, it's crazy.
Oh, and it'll happen. There was one summer, I can't remember exactly when it was. It was something stupid though. It wasn't even the wind that knocked out power. I believe a driver on the 215 careened into like a box or something. Like,
jeez.
And that like, or they hit a transmission pole coming off an exit on the 215, and that knocked power out to like a third of Henderson. In any case, That was in like the middle of July. It was 100 something degrees. And the only thing we could do, it's like my whole family just went to the mall.
Yeah, that's smart.
It's just going to go somewhere with air conditioning and come back when it's not 1 billion degrees inside.
Yeah, that's why we were looking at hotels, because I'm like, I can't. I'm the type, like, it's got to be 68 degrees inside, or otherwise I'm not sleeping. I'm waking up sweating bullets, and I can't do that. And so the other thing that I thought of too, again, I live downtown where all the power lines are, above ground and everything. I know some of the places around the valley, they've thrown them underground. And I was like, oh, maybe this is why they put them underground.
Yeah, and it's 100%. I mean, and this is a long-running human ingenuity thing. When the United States was electrifying, here's a fun fact. Back in the 1800s, New York found out the hard way that they needed to bury their electrical lines because the first big snowstorm that hit New York in like the 1880s knocked out all of their power because the way they had the lines up, I mean, it was just, it was like a spider web. I don't know if you've seen those pictures from...
They're crazy, yeah.
And so, instantly one snowstorm knocks out the entire city's power grid. And they're like, well, okay, maybe we should do something else. And I think we're going to hit that with Vegas, in any city that's, I think, impacted by these climate change things or whatever it is you cannot operate the way you have. You learn that it's just too expensive to keep, let's say, putting up power lines that are going to get knocked down again.
Yeah.
So you have to harden them. You have to bury them. You have to do whatever it takes to make sure that you're not going to run into this problem when this thing, in this case, windstorms, inevitably happens again.
Yeah, if they keep coming through, you have to figure that out, ASAP. Otherwise, it's going to continue impacting people. And like I said, God forbid it happens, in the dead of summer or something like that. And recently downtown, AT&T Quantum Fiber came through and started digging through the street and throwing in the, the fiber for internet and everything like that, which has been great. But again, it's like, put our power lines underground too. My real estate agent.
Would also be nice.
Yeah, my real estate agent said it was happening when I was looking at homes down here, and that's now been since 2022. So I'm like, hey, when is that happening?
You gotta get on it.
Yeah. So hopefully they get on that so that we don't get as impacted by these winds. But I guess again, just one of those deals where this is just what happens when you live in Las Vegas. We put up with that for the 360 days worth of sun and only a couple months of brutal, unbearable heat.
Yeah. Tie down your trampolines. Better yet, don't buy a trampoline.
Yeah. Could you imagine you're sitting in your backyard, all of a sudden just trampoline comes flying in your yard?
I'd be so mad.
So while everybody else, around town is battening down the hatches and everything to avoid the windstorms, we turn our attention to the plaza where they're seeming to be raking in some cash, going after the all-inclusive packages, Jacob.
Yes, here's an interesting one. So people around town might know this, that after never really being an all-inclusive town, a bunch of Vegas casinos, notably on the Strip, but also downtown, have put out these all-inclusive deals to lure visitors back, especially after 2025 was such a down year, mostly for the Strip, less so for other properties. Now, here's the interesting thing. So this I'm getting from a story from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, but the Plaza said that they have, quote, quadrupled the amount of people actually taking part in this all-inclusive deal.
That's a lot.
It is quite a bit. They have not shared specific data, so we don't know really how successful it is relative to other things, but obviously Plaza leadership says it's a great deal and they've seen success from it. And I think that's the interesting question here. Is the all-inclusive deal enough to get rid of the perception that Vegas is just nickel and diming you now?
Yeah, I wonder that too, because that was what I was thinking about. As great as it would be to have an all-inclusive thing, does it water down the experience, for what we've tried to paint ourselves as? And I think I think it works downtown, at some of the older casinos and things like that. I don't know if it's something that would be really viable, say, for like the Bellagio or the Wynn or Caesars or something. Like, you're just trying to offer and go after a different kind of clientele, as we've seen them try and target, versus, hey, let's just bring everybody in and not have to nickel and dime them. Don't get me wrong. I love not getting nickel and dime, but I just don't know if it's something that would be able to translate to the Strip long term. I don't know if that would be the answer for them.
Yeah, and we had this conversation with Howard Stutz, a gaming reporter at the Nevada Independent, and his point was like, where you're seeing these all-inclusive deals on the strips are sort of value-based properties, older properties that are kind of kitschier or themed and appeal more to a customer who is not going to spend Caesar's Palace money or Venetian money or
someone bringing
like
a whole
that.
family out, maybe.
Exactly. And so it makes sense that that's where you're seeing the deal. And also, looking at the plaza specifically, it makes sense that a downtown market would be more interested in this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Either more interested in a local or regional customer who's not looking to spend, thousands of dollars, but will happily spend hundreds of dollars. The thing is, though, fundamentally, the all-inclusive aspect does not solve the problem of people feeling like Vegas is ripping you off.
Yeah.
Because it's the act of, one, paying for parking. No one likes to pay for parking.
We hate that here at CityCast.
But it's the resort fee. Enemy number one, right, is the resort fee. This huge tacked on fee that you have no idea what it does. It's just there. They just say it's there. You have to pay it. You don't know what you're paying for, but it's there. And I think that's the thing. If people feel like they're getting a service, then they'll pay for something, right? Like I think like this goes to the tipping culture, right? Like tipping your valet and stuff like that. Yeah. You're getting a service. So yeah, I'll pay for that. When it's a resort fee, it's just there. And so it feels like they're stealing from you. Yeah. And I think that's what's wrong here. Or like the $30 water bottle, that also contributes to this whole conundrum.
Big time. Yeah. $30. It's crazy what they charge for some of that stuff. And as you're talking that through, the thing that pops in my head is, we hear the stories about the, casino workers, whether it's, waitresses or people at the tables and all that stuff, missing out on tips, even though maybe, that the strip itself has made more money off of less people, they're bringing home less in tips. I wonder what the ripple effect would be or has been even at the plaza for, people that are collecting tips. Like, has it gone up? Has it gone down? I would imagine it probably goes down when you're doing an all-inclusive deal.
I would love to get in the head of some of these servers down there and see, because in general, I know we've talked about this before, there's a winners and losers dynamic here that, like, if you're a winner, you will see bigger tips from huge, whale customers at the Fontainebleau or the Wynn or these properties that are catering to that kind of customer. Do you get that at a property like the Plaza? Obviously, I think probably less so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and first of all, too, in all of this, shout out to the Plaza for trying something new, doing this. I think it's cool to be nimble enough to be like, hey, let's try it. If it works, we continue to do it. If it doesn't, then we don't do it, And so they might have unlocked something for the Fremont area, for, the Excaliburs or Luxors of the world, and again, I'm very curious to see how that ends up looking for any other possible strip properties. I would imagine, though, maybe we start seeing, huge gaps in tiers. Like we were talking about F1 earlier, there's different experiences for everyone. And yes, everyone's buying a ticket in some sense, but you can do the boxes, you can do that. And I almost just envision like cordoned off areas of the casinos like we have with the high limit areas and stuff like that. Is it going to be like, all right, well, here's the lowly all-inclusive one, and here's the very ritzy one. Like, don't even look at us over here in the all-inclusive, $1 billion club, $1 billion boys club or something. I am curious, though, because for me, my brain initially went to when we were getting ready for the show. Now, if I could create a locals all-inclusive, what would it be? So I'll let you go first. If you're building out an all-inclusive package for locals in particular, what do you think it would be? What would you have to include in that?
Well, okay, when I was originally conceiving this, I was not thinking about locals because I was thinking about the sports question. It was like, I feel like there's an angle here around sports and tailoring some of these deals to sports, because it's like, okay, if we're going to make Vegas about the experience, what is an experience you can't have anywhere else? Well, we're going to meld sports with regular Vegas-y stuff.
I like that.
But if I were going to do it for locals, though, I would want to do... Look, hear me out.
Okay.
I don't know if you can merge downtown and the Arts District. They're just far enough by walking to make it annoying.
Yeah,
but
definitely
having some kind of all-inclusive deal at the downtown end that could bring you out to the Arts District to experience maybe some of the restaurateur angle. I don't know how you merge that with the casino companies that own these resorts and the Arts District properties that are not related to them at all. But I feel like there must be some opportunity to bring folks who are on Fremont and getting an eyeful, frankly, to get out and eat some of the awesome, just nightlife that is out in the Arts District.
That's kind of where my brain went too. And as you're talking about being the rational person, and then I'm sitting there thinking like, oh God, this would just totally ruin the experience of, let's say, you get an all-inclusive buffet in a sense at Esther's Kitchen. James Treves would be like, what the hell are you guys trying to lump me into? And I don't blame him one bit, but that's where my mind went, was like, okay, if you can get all-inclusive or all you can eat at Esther's, or, even, Bar Bohem and all the different spots down there, Main Street Provisions, lump it in, but then it would just turn into a smorgasbord of like, oh my God, what is going on? And I'm realizing that would just totally ruin anything and everything that we built in the Arts District.
Yeah.
So I would not love that. But it has to, no question about it. And this will surprise none of our listeners, include free parking downtown. If it doesn't, rip it up, throw it away. Don't ever think about it again.
Exactly. And you get any spot, downtown or Arts District, you just get it. You just pull right in. It's yours.
Jacob, thank you, man. This was a lot of fun. We dove into some cool stuff today.
Thank you. Always love being here.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our free morning newsletter too. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm/Las Vegas. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Until then, though, take care.